There are moments in life when words get stuck in your throat, when the heart carries storms no one else can see. Times when you sit silently in a room full of people and yet feel unheard, unseen, untouched by comfort. And it is in those precise moments that you are invited to speak, not to the world, not to people, but directly to Allah. Talk to Him the way a child speaks to the one who will never abandon them. Talk to Him without rehearsing your sentences, without polishing your emotions, without pretending to be stronger than you feel. Tell Him, Ya Allah, I'm trying, but I'm tired. Tell Him, my heart is heavy, hold it for me. Tell Him, I don't know what to do anymore, so guide me. He already knows, but He loves to hear your voice. He loves when you unload the burdens you've been carrying for far too long. He loves the tear that falls before you even finish your dua. Because that tear is a seed. And from that seed, Allah grows doors. Doors you never noticed. Doors you never imagined. Doors you never believed could exist. You may think your pain is a setback. You may think your delays are punishments. You may think your loneliness means you are forgotten. But sometimes Allah slows down your life so He can speed up your faith. Sometimes He empties your hands so He can fill them with something better. Sometimes He closes every single door you were relying on, so you finally turn to the door that was always open. Your heart might whisper, "Why me?" But your soul already knows the answer, because through this you will learn to rise, to surrender, to trust. So speak to Allah like someone who knows that the one who listens will never let their words go to waste. Crescent moon, when you trust Allah's timing, beautiful things begin. You might be waiting for a job, a spouse, a breakthrough, a healing, an opportunity, a peace that feels overdue. You might wonder why others receive quickly while you keep waiting. But every delay with Allah is a masterpiece under construction. Every not yet is a preparation. Every wait a little longer is a protection. Allah is not just opening doors. He is building the right door at the right time for the right version of you. And when that moment comes, one small blessing will replace years of heartache. One answered dua will make you say, Subhanallah, this was worth every tear. Sometimes you will walk blindfolded through seasons of uncertainty. You won't know what tomorrow holds, but you will know who holds tomorrow. And that certainty, that quiet, trembling, hopeful certainty is what takes an ordinary believer and shapes them into someone extraordinary. Tawakkul is not the absence of fear. It is moving forward despite your fear, because you trust Allah more than you trust your worries. Tonight, tomorrow, whenever your heart whispers for relief, talk to Allah. Talk to Him. When you are joyful, when you are hurting, when you succeed, when you fail, when you are lost, when you return, talk to Him like the one who loves you endlessly. Talk to Him like the one who knows your past, heals your present, and writes your future. And then surrender. Step back and watch how He opens doors you thought were impossible. Watch how He lifts you higher after every fall. Watch how He sends light into places you thought would stay dark forever. Because when you speak to Allah with a sincere heart, He responds with miracles you never even knew how to ask for. The power of honest, heartfelt conversation with Allah is one of the most transformative spiritual experiences a human being can taste. It is not bound by language, eloquence, or ritual perfection. It is the moment when the soul realizes that it has a place to rest, to unload, to breathe, to be understood without needing to explain itself. When you speak to Allah sincerely, you are no longer performing faith, you are living it. You are standing before the one who knows the secrets you hide even from yourself, and yet He invites you to bring them forward. There is something profoundly healing about knowing that every thought, every fear, every doubt, every tear has a place to go. You don't have to filter your emotions, you don't have to pretend strength, you don't have to hide your weakness. You can come as you are, broken, confused, hopeful, exhausted, grateful, or lost, and you will never be turned away. Most people speak to the world far more than they speak to Allah. They discuss their problems, they complain, they seek validation, they explain their pain to people who can barely solve their own. But the one who actually controls outcomes is often the last one they turn to, or the one they turn to only when they feel out of options. Yet the beauty of speaking to Allah is that you are not just releasing your emotions, you are placing them in the hands of the one who can transform them. Your sadness is not just heard, it is healed. Your confusion is not just acknowledged, it is guided. Your fear is not just seen, it is protected. There is a certain glow that enters the heart when you speak to Allah with honesty. Imagine a traveler carrying a heavy load along a long, lonely road. Their shoulders ache, their steps drag, and their breath grows shallow. Then suddenly, they find a resting place, somewhere safe, quiet, and familiar. That is what an honest conversation with Allah feels like. You take off the burdens you have worn for too long. You stretch the parts of your heart that have been cramped with silent worries. You rest in the comfort of knowing that you don't need to pretend anymore. Some think that speaking to Allah must always be formal, structured dua, memorized words, perfect pronunciations. But true intimacy with Allah comes when you speak from the rawest depth of your heart, even if your voice shakes. It is the moment you whisper, "Ya Allah, I'm tired," and you feel something inside you loosen. It is when you say, "I don't know what to do," and you feel your burden shift as if someone has helped you carry it. It is when you confess, "I'm scared," and a quiet reassurance settles into your chest without a single word being spoken back. It is when you admit, "I can't do this alone," and suddenly you no longer feel alone. These moments are not small. They are spiritual turning points. They mark the difference between a faith practiced out of habit and a faith lived with the heart awake. When you speak to Allah sincerely, you will find yourself becoming more aware of His presence in every corner of your life. When you wake up, you will whisper gratitude. When you are unsure, you will seek guidance. When you are overwhelmed, you will instinctively turn inward to connect with Him. When you are at peace, you will know exactly where that peace came from. And it is often in these honest conversations that Allah opens doors you never imagined. Because the moment the heart softens in front of Allah, that is the moment destiny begins to move. It is not magic, it is trust meeting divine mercy. When you speak to Allah with sincerity, you are making space inside yourself for His blessings to enter. You become more patient without even trying. You become more hopeful even in struggle. You begin to expect good from Allah even when life feels difficult. And this expectation, this good opinion of Allah becomes the key that unlocks doors you once believed were sealed shut. But perhaps the most beautiful part of speaking to Allah honestly is this. He already knows everything you are going to say, but He still loves to hear you say it. There is no other relationship like that in existence. With people, repetition can annoy, weakness can burden, vulnerability can frighten them. But with Allah, every tear you shed in front of Him is honored. Every fear you confess is held gently. Every request you make is heard with compassion, even if the answer doesn't come immediately. Because Allah is not just listening to your words, He is responding to your heart. In the end, speaking to Allah with honesty is the beginning of every transformation. It is where healing starts, where clarity unfolds, where strength returns, and where hope is reborn. It is where a believer realizes that no matter how heavy life becomes, there is always a direct line to the one who can lighten it. And once the heart experiences that intimacy, that relief, that closeness, it becomes impossible to live without it. Turning pain into prayer is one of the most powerful spiritual transformations a believer can experience. It is not simply a reaction to hardship, it is a conscious decision to lift your wounds toward the one who can actually heal them. Every human being carries inner battles, silent fears, disappointments that linger long after the moment has passed, and memories that still sting. Sometimes it feels as if the heart is being pulled apart from the inside, and you don't know where to place the hurt. In these moments, the greatest refuge is to turn every pulse of pain into a whisper to Allah. Not because it makes the hardship disappear instantly, but because it gives meaning, direction, and purpose to the struggle. When your pain becomes a prayer, your suffering is no longer a burden, it becomes a bridge. There are times when you feel broken in ways you can't describe to anyone. You try to explain to people, but the words shrink inside your mouth. You try to appear strong, but the cracks beneath your skin widen. You may find yourself lying awake at night, staring at a ceiling that cannot answer you, sitting in a car parked somewhere, thinking about a future you cannot see, or walking through your day with a smile that hides more than it reveals. These moments are not signs of weakness, they are invitations. Invitations to lift the pain upward, to turn your turmoil into a conversation with the one who never gets tired of hearing your voice. When you feel overwhelmed, speak to Allah honestly. Why Allah? I don't understand why this is happening. When you feel empty, tell Him, fill my heart with strength. When your tears fall, let them fall in His presence, even if no words come out. Tears themselves are a form of dua, silent, sincere, and deeply eloquent. Allah sees every tear before it forms, hears every heartbeat as it trembles, and knows the weight of every sadness you carry. Your pain is never unnoticed. It is never wasted. It is never ignored. The hardest moments in life are often the most transformative because they strip away the illusions we cling to. Pain humbles you. It shows you how limited your strength actually is. It pushes you to the edge where you finally stop relying on people, circumstances, or your own plans, and you begin to rely solely on Allah. This shift, this turning point is where pain becomes powerful. Because the moment you stop carrying the burden alone, the moment you release it to Allah, the healing process begins even before the situation changes. Sometimes you think that your heartbreak is a setback, but often it is a divine push toward a better place. Pain forces you to pause, to reflect, to think deeper, to search more sincerely. It makes you raise your hands in dua in ways you never did when life was easy. It makes you speak to Allah from a depth you didn't know you had. It breaks open the heart so that light can enter. And with every sincere whisper, every trembling plea, every night spent in prayer, something inside you begins to revive. Turning pain into prayer does not mean pretending you're okay. It means admitting you're not okay, but choosing to take your weakness to the one who can turn it into strength. It means letting your vulnerability uncover a part of your soul that has been waiting to reconnect with your Creator. It means saying, I can't do this, Ya Allah, and knowing that the moment those words leave your lips, you are no longer carrying the burden alone. What makes pain sacred is that it is often the closest state a human being comes to Allah. When your heart is shattered, you are more truthful. When your hands shake, you are more humble. When your plans collapse, you are more sincere. These qualities are beloved to Allah. They open doors that comfort never could. Many of the greatest transformations in a believer's life begin at the very moment they feel like they are falling apart. And the beauty is this: even if no one else knows your battle, Allah does. Even if no one else understands your silence, Allah does. Even if no one else sees your wounds, Allah does. So your prayers born out of pain rise with a purity that angels honor. Pain teaches you patience. It teaches you resilience. It teaches you reliance on Allah alone. But most of all, it teaches you how to speak to Allah with a heart stripped of ego, pride, and superficiality. In that rawness, you find clarity. You begin to see that the same pain that breaks you also builds you. The same hardship that weakens you also softens you. And the same wound that hurts you also opens a space for something better to grow. So when life feels unbearable, turn the pain into prayer. Tell Allah everything you cannot tell anyone else. Place your sadness in the only hands capable of transforming it. Let your tears become your dua, your silence become your submission, your struggle become your pathway to closeness with Him. And trust, deeply and fully, that the pain you bring to Allah will return to you as peace, sometimes slowly, sometimes suddenly, but always perfectly timed. There are moments in life when you look around and every door seems closed. Opportunities slip through your hands, plans collapse, and the future feels like a fog you can't see beyond. You try one direction and find disappointment. You try another and find confusion. You pour your effort into things that once made sense, yet nothing seems to move. In these moments, it's easy to feel forgotten. It's easy to feel as if your prayers are floating into an empty sky. But the truth is far more comforting. When you trust Allah's timing with deep sincerity, He opens doors you never even knew existed, doors that appear at the exact moment you are meant to walk through them. Often the doors you desperately want to open are not the ones that will lead you to your best destiny. You may ask for a job that would limit you, a relationship that would harm your peace, an opportunity that would distract you, or a path that would distance your heart from Allah. Yet you want it so intensely that you mistake rejection for abandonment. But not every closed door is a loss. Some are divine protection. Some are Allah gently redirecting you towards something more meaningful, more wholesome, more aligned with the purpose of your life. Trusting Allah's timing means understanding that delay is not denial. It is a slow, quiet preparation. You might be praying for something today that your own character is not yet ready to receive. There are blessings that require a stronger heart, a clearer mind, or a more grounded spirit. Allah does not withhold out of cruelty, He withholds out of wisdom. He withholds because He sees what you do not. He knows what situation will shape you, which path will soften you, which challenge will mature you, and which blessing you are meant to step into only after you've grown into it. When you trust Allah fully, you begin to see signs of His planning all around you. Something that once disappointed you suddenly makes sense years later. A heartbreak that once crushed you becomes the turning point that elevated your soul. A failure that embarrassed you becomes the lesson that secured your future. Allah's timing is perfect because it is tailored specifically for the growth of your heart. He doesn't just want you to reach your destination, He wants you to arrive ready, prepared, and spiritually awake. There is a moment in every believer's life where they realize that life is not random. The closed doors, the unexpected pauses, the invisible delays, all of them are stitched together with divine intention. When you trust that, your heart settles. You stop rushing. You stop forcing outcomes. You stop begging for things not meant for you. Instead, you begin to speak to Allah with a serenity that comes from knowing that what is written for you will reach you, and what is not meant for you will pass you by, even if you chase it with all your strength. The doors Allah opens are not like the doors people open. People open doors based on convenience, preference, and emotion. But Allah opens doors based on what will elevate your soul, strengthen your character, and draw you closer to Him. Sometimes these doors appear suddenly after years of waiting. Sometimes they open quietly, without fireworks, without grand announcements. Sometimes the door He opens is internal, a new understanding, a new strength, a new clarity that changes the way you see everything. One of the most beautiful things about Allah's openings is that they arrive when you least expect it, often after you've let go of trying to control the outcome. You might spend months praying for one specific thing, only to be given something far greater, something you didn't even know to ask for. This is where trust becomes powerful. It frees you from disappointment because you know that even when you don't get what you want, you will get what is best for you. You may be in a season where nothing seems to be moving, where every effort feels wasted, where every door you knock on stays firmly closed. But often these are the seasons where Allah is building something behind the scenes. You cannot see the construction, but you can feel the preparation. You may feel restless, unsettled, even confused. But like a seed planted deep in the soil, growth is happening in silence. Allah is shaping your future quietly so that when it arrives beautifully. Sometimes you won't understand why Allah closed the door until you see what He opens instead. Sometimes the heartbreak that shattered you was necessary to protect you from something far worse. Sometimes the path that ended abruptly was only meant to be a short chapter, not your entire story. And sometimes the door you prayed for was never meant to open because Allah was leading you to something far better, something your limited vision could not yet comprehend. True trust in Allah is when you say, "Yeah, Allah, I wanted this, but if you choose something else for me, I trust you more than I trust myself." When you reach this level of surrender, your heart becomes peaceful no matter what happens. You stop fearing closed doors. You stop clinging to what is leaving. You stop worrying about the future, because you know that whatever Allah is planning is filled with wisdom, mercy, and love. And when that moment finally arrives, when Allah opens the door that was meant for you all along, you will look back and understand. You will realize why it didn't happen before. You will realize why certain people left, why certain plans failed, why certain prayers seemed unanswered. You will say to yourself with deep gratitude, "Subhanallah, this was worth every delay." Walking with trust in Allah, even when nothing makes sense, is one of the most challenging yet transformative acts of faith. It is easy to trust when life is smooth, when your plans align perfectly with your expectations, and when every step feels clear. But true trust is built in the dark, when you cannot see the path, when every door feels uncertain, and when your heart trembles with questions you don't have answers to. This is where the soul begins to grow. This is where faith becomes real, raw, and deeply rooted. When you walk with trust during confusion, You discover a version of yourself that you never knew existed, a version anchored not in circumstances but in Allah. Every person goes through moments where life feels like a maze. You turn left and feel lost. You turn right and feel stuck. You try to move forward, but the ground beneath you shifts. You try to go back, but the past no longer fits. These are the seasons where Allah is quietly inviting you to walk with Him instead of walking with certainty. Certainty is comforting, but it can also become a crutch. If you always knew the plan, you would never truly depend on Allah. You would depend on your own knowledge, your own strategies, your own predictions. But when Allah removes these illusions and places you in situations where you cannot see the outcome, those situations become sacred classrooms. They teach you how to trust the planner rather than the plan. Trusting Allah does not mean you never feel fear. It means you choose to move despite the fear. It means your steps continue forward even when your heart hesitates. It means telling yourself, I don't know how, but Allah will get me through this. This type of trust transforms your relationship with your Creator. You begin to see Him not only as the one who blesses you, but as the one who walks with you through your darkest seasons. You start to feel His closeness in every uncertainty, His mercy in every delay, His wisdom in every redirection. Walking through life with trust does not remove hardship, but it changes how you carry it. Instead of feeling crushed by challenges, you begin to see them as spiritual training. You start realizing that discomfort is sometimes a sign that Allah is elevating you, not harming you. You start noticing that confusion often precedes clarity. You begin to understand that survival is not the goal, growth is. And growth rarely happens in comfort. It happens in the moments where your illusions fall apart, your plans collapse, and you are forced to lean on Allah more than ever before. Think of a traveler walking through a desert at night. The darkness around them is overwhelming, and the road ahead is barely visible. But the traveler still takes each step because they have faith that the path continues even if they can't see it. They trust the direction even when the surroundings offer no reassurance. This is what walking with trust in Allah feels like. You may not see the full picture, but you trust the one who does. You move not because you understand everything, but because you believe that Allah's plan is better than your fear. Many people collapse under uncertainty because they think they need to see the outcome to move forward. But life doesn't work that way. Most of the time, you recognize the meaning of your journey only after you've walked it. What feels confusing now may become clear later. What feels painful now may become precious later. What feels heavy now may become the strength you rely on later. Trust bridges the gap between confusion and clarity, between fear and peace, between hardship and elevation. There are moments when you will feel like nothing is happening, even though you're praying, trying, and waiting. But trust teaches you that silence does not mean absence. When the surface of your life looks still, Allah is rearranging things beneath it. When the world seems unchanged, your destiny is quietly shifting. When you feel forgotten, you are actually being shaped. Trust requires patience, and patience requires surrender. Not the passive kind of surrender where you give up, but the active kind where you release your need to control everything. Walking with trust means accepting that you may not understand everything now, and that's okay. It means believing that your story is unfolding exactly the way it is meant to, even if the chapters are difficult to read. It means reminding yourself that Allah never writes a hardship without placing within it seeds of relief, growth, and wisdom. These seeds may take time to bloom, but they always bloom at the perfect moment. As you walk this path, you will notice a shift inside you. The fear that once paralyzed you becomes quieter. The doubts that once overwhelmed you lose their grip. The anxiety about the future softens because you no longer walk alone. You walk with the one who knows your past, your present, and your future with perfect clarity. And with each step you take, your trust deepens. You begin to feel that even if the path is hidden, the guide is present. Even if the journey is difficult, the destination is worth it. Even if your heart trembles, your soul knows you are protected. This is the beauty of walking through life with trust in Allah. You may not always know where you are going, but you always know who you are going with. A sincere call to action begins when a person finally realizes that faith is not something you simply feel, it is something you practice, live, and embody every single day. Speaking to Allah, trusting His timing, surrendering your fears, these are not abstract ideas meant to remain as beautiful concepts in the mind. They are meant to be lived as a lifestyle, a daily habit, a spiritual discipline that transforms your heart, your choices, your reactions, and your entire approach to life. This call is not about perfection. It is about presence. It is about showing up for your own soul by turning toward the one who created it. The moment you decide to turn to Allah intentionally is the moment your life begins to shift. It starts small, maybe with a quiet dua whispered before sleep, or a sincere tear shed in a moment of loneliness. Maybe with a few minutes of reflection, a short prayer for guidance, or an honest confession of fear. But each small moment is like planting a seed. The more consistently you speak to Allah, the more beautifully these seeds grow. They grow into clarity when you feel confused, patience when you feel overwhelmed, strength when you feel exhausted, hope when you feel lost, and peace when you feel anxious. The transformation is gradual but undeniable. A true call to action invites you to show up for your own heart. It tells you, stop running from the pain, stop numbing the sadness, stop silencing the doubts. Face them with Allah by your side. Talk to Him as if He is listening, because He is. Speak to Him as if He cares, because He does. Approach Him as if He understands every emotion you cannot explain to anyone else, because He truly does. Your life begins to change the moment you stop treating prayer as a last option and start treating it as your first response. This call to action urges you to practice surrender, not surrender of effort, but surrender of worry. You are not being told to sit back and wait for miracles without trying. You are being called to put in the effort while leaving the results to Allah. You plan, but you do not panic. You work, but you do not obsess. You move forward, but you do not cling to outcomes with fear. This type of surrender frees the soul. It removes the suffocating pressure to control every detail of your future. It opens space for trust, space for peace, space for divine intervention. It is also a call to be consistent. Turning to Allah is not something you do only when your world is falling apart. It is something you do when you are stable, when you are content, when life feels calm. Because consistency builds closeness. The more you speak to Allah on your good days, the easier it becomes to speak to Him on your difficult days. You create a relationship in which your heart naturally gravitates toward Him, not out of desperation, but out of love. This consistency becomes a spiritual anchor, keeping you grounded even when the storms of life begin to shake everything around you. This call to action invites you to look at your pain differently. Instead of seeing it as a punishment, see it as a message. Instead of seeing it as a setback, see it as a turning point. Instead of seeing it as the end, see it as the beginning of a new phase in your life. Sometimes the crack in your heart is the exact place where Allah's light enters. Sometimes the thing you lost was the very thing holding you back from something greater. Sometimes the struggle you're facing is shaping your character in ways comfort never could. When you respond to pain with prayer, you transform it into purpose. A sincere call to action is also a call to reflect. To pause for a moment and ask yourself, where am I heading? What am I holding on to that is hurting me? What blessing have I taken for granted? What worry have I allowed to drain me? What dream have I given up on too soon? Reflection is not self-criticism. It is self-awareness. It is recognizing that your heart needs Allah the same way your body needs air constantly, repeatedly, without interruption. This call is an invitation to trust the unseen. Life will not always make sense. You won't always understand the timing. You won't always see the wisdom, but trust bridges that gap. Trust reassures you that even when you cannot trace the plan, you can always trust the planner. Even when you cannot see the road, you can always follow the one guiding you through it. This trust does not eliminate hardship, but it transforms how you experience it. Instead of drowning in fear, you float in faith. Finally, this call to action urges you to rise emotionally, spiritually, mentally. Rise from your doubts. Rise from your sorrow. Rise from your hopelessness. Rise from your procrastination. Rise with the intention to reconnect with Allah. Rise knowing that every small step you take toward Him is met with divine mercy far greater than the effort you put in. Rise knowing that your story is not over, that Allah is not done writing the chapters of your life, and that what is coming will be better than what you lost, better than what you imagined, and better than what you prayed for. Your heart was created to know Allah. This call to action is simply reminding you to return to the place where true peace begins.